Hello, folks. Well, this is Miguel from Embargo Man. All right, so one thing for it is, and I'm just going to ask you anything. What would happen if a Boeing 737 Max crashes in Tokyo, Japan, and there's no survivors? Well, I have done a video that says about you know, airplane trade embargoes. Well, this is more obviously to yours truly want to protect Boeing. I mean, what it is of all these things that have happened is, for instance, I mean, I've seen the Olympics and all that stuff, right? And I've never seen the whole games, but then after the games, after all this, a Boeing 737 Max crashes somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Tokyo, Japan. Zero survivors. All right? So, this would be one thing of a question that I mean, do you feel safe riding a Boeing 737 Max if the Boeing 737 Max crashes in Japan? Okay, regardless of all things, the first thing was gonna happen about the survivors, about the people that have zero survivors. Zero survivors. Imagine that. Zero survivors. All right. So what happened would be all the family members on all the depending where around there is all man like everybody dead in that airplane. So what happened is that Japan, mostly I make the government, they might just say they might not gonna use 737 Max because they crash it in their own country. They're gonna use their own stuff. And this is where things go handy. If there are Americans in that airplane in that crash with involving a 737 Max in Japan, then under the administration we have now, so there might be an investigation. And what is it to put down an airplane? The CEO of Boeing is going to be in trouble for not focusing on quality. If it's with quality issues, all right? Quality issues on an aircraft. I mean, this is going all the way over and over and over again. I mean, could be lasting like 2 terms of the Biden administration, right? So what happened in there is that there'll be some investigations against Boeing about their faulty planes and all stuff. Comac is a Chinese newcomer, but this is just regarding a Max crash in Japan. When a Max crashes in Japan, that means that one of the competitors, or maybe the only thing about competitors, that one of the companies that might take Boeing out of business is called Mitsubishi, right? So what will happen with this Space Jet and MJ or whatever? They're gonna just build or design an airplane equivalent to you break off the duopoly, or maybe just kill off one competitor. So what happened is they're going to develop a Boeing 737 Max equivalent, right? But then if already built that plane, if Mitsubishi already built that plane, I mean, the FAA might just, oh, most likely one of the main customers buy or reject Boeing that is not even Japan or that is not the United States would be an airline from Australia would just give the middle finger to Boeing. They just give the middle finger to Boeing, right? So that means that most likely trusting more on Japan than in the United States for building an airplane is kind of like, look at with this, the safety issues with the 737 Max not fixing it, keep screwing up, and then all of a sudden the same thing that happened with cars. Cars, on the other hand, I mean, nobody has, seen a car crashing down because a car doesn't fly. A car rides in the road, it doesn't fly. It's just some dumb idiot just crash a car in the post, and then like whatever it is, not wearing a seatbelt, whatever, that's a whole different story. But for a matter of fact, is what's going to happen is the same with cars. It's same with cars. The same with what's going to happen with Boeing. Or, I mean, they already set up a foreign manufacturer, already set up a factory in the United States making airplanes, and that is Airbus. Airbus is based in France, right? Or I mean, it started in France. But hey, anyway, they were making A320s in Mobile, Alabama, right? So that is out of the picture, so nothing to worry about. But now let's talk about the Boeing Max 737 Max crash in Japan. The Boeing 737 Max crash in Japan. What's going to happen is this. China might just saying, you know what? Let's just kick off our Comac C919. Probably, like the China's the next Japan in a way of quality products. So yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Even a knockoff Harley Davidson is better quality than the original. Put it that way. It's true in some ways, right? So guess what? A knockoff Harley stopped the leaking, while the original made in America still have leaks. Now, that's just plain, might be reality, but it's kind of true in all aspects nowadays. So what would happen? What would happen with the Boeing 737 Max being crashed in Japan? That the investigation, if there's any Americans in that airplane crash in Japan, then it would be all with the Japanese government, the U.S. government. And then what happened that would set it off with Boeing, and what would happen next is that is going to be a bunch of lawsuits of faulty airplanes, of probably the MCAS being involved, and all of this stuff, an investigation that could lead to the company going to the fate of the dodo bird, right? The fate of the dodo bird, that means that doesn't exist. A dodo bird is a bird that doesn't exist. It's just extinct, right? So what happened with Boeing going to the fate of the dinosaur, going like being extinct, it's history. So what happened is that after the Japanese manufacturer has the idea of releasing a product, then I don't know if they call it the jet line or the space jet 5,000 or whatever it is. Put it that way, space jet 5,000 or space jet 1,000. Or put it that way, right? That's the Mitsubishi plane, right? So what happened with that is that an Australian airline company would see Boeing's safety record, 3 crashes, and they're not gonna buy an airplane, and they just decide to buy Mitsubishi, and then they just buy Mitsubishi, and the other plane they might just buy would be Airbus, right? Airbus, right? So what happened with that is that they're just buying Mitsubishi and Airbus planes for the Australian airline. Yeah, like put it that way. It's like this is what happened. The same thing would happen with American car companies against their Japanese rivals. Boeing's gonna have to face the same fate, but this time if it's an airplane, they're going to be extinct. They're going to the fate of the dodo bird. That Boeing will not exist. So that would happen be is like it happened with another U.S. Another airplane manufacturer based in Holland that they went out of business. Is going to happen with Boeing, but Boeing has bought out McDonnell Douglas, right? So put it that way, they bought out McDonnell Douglas, but then Boeing's gonna go, is gonna hit on them too. Yeah, so what would happen is that people would have a bunch of lawsuits. Everybody, like whoever has flown in this flight that crashed in Japan, they would say a bunch of lawsuits, a bunch of all this in between these fill up of all these lawsuits, of all these complaints about their families members being dead, or they cannot, whatever it is that what would happen if it's in the Trump administration, it would be more in the favor of Boeing, but against the family members, it says that like they're protecting Boeing, sanctions of blocking, trade sanctions on Japan of not buying Japanese made airplanes just to protect Boeing to go out of business. Well, that's not in the case with we, but with this administration that we have right now, the sanctions of all this, and then Boeing, the CEO being charged for crimes and for like mass murder or whatever, and the people against Boeing, and then what happened with that is that what will happen if during this administration, whoever it is, like without Trump. So what will happen is that it is going to be that they don't want to use the aviation industry to be too lost in the United States. And in other words, America don't make anything anymore, not even airplanes. Like America doesn't even make airplanes anymore. Like even the airplanes are made outside the United States. That's not gonna happen. What's gonna happen is the same thing with foreign-based companies has set up manufacturing of other stuff. Airbus from Europe has set up a facility in Alabama. All these European, most likely from Germany, has set up factories in Alabama and Tennessee and probably South Carolina, North Carolina, BMW with BMW. And the Japanese car manufacturers set up factories in the United States, Ohio, Tennessee with Nissan, Kentucky, and whatever the Japanese manufacturers have set up factories in the United States to make cars. All right, so Mitsubishi's case, it is that the meeting would be Biden and everybody's in Atlanta, Georgia. It's gonna take place in Atlanta, Georgia, right? So what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, would be jobs are gonna be kept in the United States, but making airplanes. But this time it's not gonna be by a U.S. based company, but a company based in Japan. No other but Mitsubishi making airplanes in the United States in Atlanta, Georgia. So that is gonna happen, and if that happens, Boeing is digging, is digging a hole in themselves. They just playing Russian roulette. They're digging a hole in themselves. They're going down and under in the stakes of Boeing. Boeing keep losing money, and when Boeing keeps losing money, and they losing money, and they lose money, and they lose money, and they lose money, and a Japanese manufacturer has a setup factory in Atlanta, Georgia, then this is where the final nail in the coffin is Boeing's dead. We killed Boeing. Boeing goes out of business. When Boeing goes out of business, is bad for Boeing. The people in Washington, they're gonna lose a bunch of jobs. They're gonna have a bunch of layoffs. The people I'm in North Carolina or wherever, another Boeing facility also going out of business, lay off workers because the company is dead, right? So what happened with that after the MAX crashes in Japan, then people in Seattle, Washington State, people in Seattle, Washington, and people at North Carolina at the Boeing facilities are not going to be so happy. They're going to lose their jobs. They're going out of business. The company went out of business, and people working at the Mitsubishi facility in Atlanta, Georgia are going to be happy. Jobs are going to be created and all that stuff. And then boost jobs in Alabama also. Airplane jobs are going to Alabama also with Airbus, but most likely the Atlanta, Georgia. The Atlanta, Georgia part is that where people are going to get the jobs there. And then you have in the second term of Biden, whatever it is, job creation in Atlanta, Georgia by a Japanese manufacturer, while Boeing, in the years after the Boeing 737 MAX in Japan, years after the Boeing 737 MAX crash in Japan, then what would happen is that people in there, they're going to leave, the family of the victims in the United States and in Japan. Well, gonna make but most likely the victims in the United States are gonna be so happy. They just say, and then you have the president being so happy that this is a real American pride, a Japanese company setting up a factory to make airplanes in the United States, just after the Boeing 737 MAX crashes in Japan. I mean, it's like a win-win situation in all aspects. And then in the other side, with the Boeing workers, they're gonna be so pissed off. They're like freaking or homeless, or they're gonna do other crap or whatever it is, just because they lost their jobs, just because the MAX has crashed in Japan. Then what they're gonna do? Go to Alabama and work for the European competitor, or go to Atlanta, Georgia or work for the competitor that took Boeing out of business, that came from Japan. I mean, this could happen is most likely precise this, right? Once this happens, a Boeing 737 MAX crashes in Japan. During this administration, and that is, Trump is not in the picture in the politics, then what's going to happen is Boeing goes out of business, the CEO goes to jail, and the only company that makes airplanes for defense will be Lockheed Martin. Well, I don't know what's going to happen, right? This is just the next couple of phases of all these things is that, hey, you see President Long in Atlanta, Georgia, having a Japanese manufacturer set up a factory to make airplanes while Boeing goes out of business. Is going to happen? I believe it's going to happen pretty soon. Once a Boeing 737 MAX crashes in Japan, and what will happen is that the people in in Seattle, Washington are gonna lose their jobs. People in North Carolina, South Carolina, where they make the Boeing facility, are also gonna lose jobs. And then people, when a Japanese manufacturer comes in Atlanta, Georgia to make airplanes, they're gonna be happy campers. I mean, that is what's gonna happen when a Boeing 737 Max crashes in Japan. So subscribe to Embargo Man on YouTube. I bet you get some information, well informed, of what I think was going to happen if a Boeing 737 Max in Japan, if a Boeing 737 Max crashes in Japan. And then please hit me and comment and hit the bell for more videos on the Embargo Man channel. Please subscribe to Embargo Man. Goodbye and have a nice week.